Hi there, welcome back to the video course. In the last section, we implemented the collision detection logic between the hero and other types of game objects, namely enemy and coin. In this section, we create the game level by placing different platforms on the stage. We learn how to generate the game level. There are continuous platforms for the hero to stand on. There are enemies and coins randomly placed on those platforms. These platforms have a variable width to make the game less boring. We also introduce difficulties by controlling the platform's placement and enemies count. At last, we implement a score multiplier. When player collects coins, high levels. Let's get started on the first video of the section. In this video, we place platforms and game objects together. We use for loop to generate platforms, coins, and enemies. The platform's placement has randomness variables. The coins and enemies has a chance to be on the platforms. Let's get started by opening the game es6.js file in Code Editor. At this moment, we only have two platforms on the stage. They are for testing purposes. We want to generate a continuous platform so that the hero can keep running on it. There is a height difference and a gap between each platform. In the world class, we update the generate platforms function. We delete the original platform generation code, which generated the first two platforms. We are going to use a loop, so we don't need the hard-coded platforms here. We use a for loop to generate platforms. The platforms are placed side by side. We need several variables for the platform generation. They are the gap between each platform in x and y axis. They are a range. Each variable defines the maximum value. When we set gap x to be 10 pixels, the generated gap could be 0 to 10 pixels away from the last one. When we set the gap y to 10 pixels, the next platform could be -5 pixels to +5 pixels. We also need to store the next x and y position for the platform. The initial value is predefined. After the first platform, these values are calculated based on the gap variables and the random value. This is how we generate the platforms based on these variables. After we generate the platforms, we place enemies on them, still in the world class. We define a generate enemies method. We iterate all the generated platforms. For each platform, we use random to determine if there is an enemy there. We can set the chance to be 30% at this moment. Then, inside the if condition, we create an enemy instance and place it at the middle of the platform. We also need to add the enemy as a child of the world container, and we need to store the enemy reference in the array. Before we move on, we want to tweak the generation a little bit. We don't want the first few platforms to have enemies, otherwise it will be too difficult to play. We can avoid that by skipping the first two platforms when we iterate the platforms array. We delete the original enemy code in the world class and replace it with the new generate enemies function. Let's also generate the coins by using similar method. In the world class, we define a new function, generate coins. We iterate all the platforms for each platform. We generate coin based on a randomized chance. Let's set to 80% here. The value doesn't matter much because we are going to change it into level controlled data later. For the coin, we place it on the platform at a random position. The position could be from the starting X position of the platform to the end of the platform. The Y is the platform's Y position minus the coin's height, so it looks to be right above the platform. Then we use add child to add it to the world to display it, and we push the coin to the coins array. Similar to the enemy, we replace the original coin creation code with the new generate coins function. Now, we should see the platforms generation, enemies generation, and coins generation function calling in the world constructor. The platforms generation needs to come first because the enemies and coins are based on it. Let's save the file and upload the code to the hosting. When we test the game in the latest Chrome browser, we could see the platforms are generated. The hero is running on the platforms. Occasionally, there are enemies blocking us and coins waiting for us to collect. We have changed the game objects generation code with 3 for loop. The game now generates platforms with some randomness. There are enemies and coins placed on those platforms. In the next video, we create dynamic width for the platforms.